I never believed my house had secrets. I thought I knew every creak of the floorboards, every crack in the walls, and every corner of every room. But then, one night, I found something I wasn't supposed to see, a hidden passage. It wasn't just a door or a trapdoor, it was like a secret carved into the very bones of the house. And what I found inside changed everything. It all started on a rainy evening when the power went out. I was wandering around with just my phone's flashlight when I noticed something odd in the hallway. A faint outline on the wallpaper, almost like a door frame, but it didn't match any door I remembered. Curious and a bit nervous, I pressed my hand against the wall, and to my shock, it gave way, revealing a narrow, dark corridor. At first, I thought it must be some old servant's passage or maybe a forgotten basement entry. But there was no light, no air vent, nothing that made sense. It was as if the passage had been hidden for decades, waiting for someone to find it. The moment I stepped inside, a cold rush hit me. The air was thick, stale, and heavy with silence. My flashlight flickered as I moved deeper, revealing peeling wallpaper, old wooden beams, and something else, scrawled symbols on the walls that looked like they belonged to another time, another world. I wasn't just in a hidden hallway, I was somewhere completely out of place. My heart raced, but I couldn't turn back. What if someone else had discovered this before? What if something was still inside? Questions flooded my mind, but I had to know. What was this place, why was it hidden, and what had been kept secret all these years? I'm telling you this because what I found next, it wasn't something I could have imagined. It wasn't just a forgotten corner of the house, it was something darker, something alive. I took a deep breath and stepped further into the passage. The narrow walls seemed to close in on me, and the air got colder with every step. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the darkness, but I kept moving forward, drawn by a mix of fear and curiosity I couldn't shake. The floor was uneven, dusty, and creaked under my weight. The smell was something like old wood mixed with something faintly metallic, like iron. As I walked, I noticed the symbols on the walls grew clearer, and the scrawls looked less like random marks and more like writing. I couldn't make out the language, but the shapes were sharp and jagged, almost like a warning. Suddenly, I heard a faint scratching noise behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam darting through the shadows, but there was nothing there. Just silence. I told myself it was the house settling, or maybe a small animal trapped somewhere. But my heart was pounding, and I felt that familiar itch of being watched. Further down the passage, the walls opened into a small room. The ceiling was low, and the space cramped. Dusty furniture lay scattered around, an old rocking chair tipped over, a broken mirror, and a small wooden table covered in cobwebs. The room felt like it had been frozen in time, untouched for decades. On the table, I found a faded notebook, its cover cracked and brittle. I opened it carefully. The pages were filled with handwriting, sprawling letters and strange symbols like the ones on the walls. As I flipped through, I noticed sketches, twisted faces, dark eyes, and more symbols arranged in patterns. One page caught my attention. It had a rough map of the passage I was in, with a red circle marking a spot labeled simply, "Do not open." My skin crawled. Was someone else here before me? Did they know what lurked beyond? A sudden noise startled me, a soft whisper, barely audible, like a breath in my ear. I froze. My phone flickered violently, then went dark. Panic surged through me. I fumbled to turn it back on, the screen lighting up just enough to reveal that the passageway continued beyond the small room, spiraling downwards into deeper darkness. I debated turning back. But the part of me that wanted answers pushed me forward. With the notebook in my hand and the light barely working, I took another step down the stairwell that seemed to lead underground. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air grew damp, and my footsteps echoed off unseen walls. The walls here were bare stone, cold and slick with moisture. I saw strange carvings, different from the symbols above, more intricate and menacing. About 10 feet down, I found something carved into the stone, a symbol that looked like an eye with a slit pupil. It was the same symbol scrawled faintly on the notebook's cover. I couldn't tell if it was a warning or a sign of something worse. At the bottom, the passage opened into a vast chamber. My flashlight barely illuminated the space, but I could see rows of old, broken furniture, dusty shelves with jars filled with strange substances, and what looked like ritualistic objects, candles, bones, and tattered cloth. Something about the room felt unnatural. It wasn't just old, it was charged with a heavy energy, like the air itself was watching me. I ran my fingers over an ancient-looking book on a pedestal. The cover was made of something that looked like worn leather, but when I touched it, a chill shot through my hand. I shuddered and quickly pulled back. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement, a shadow darting past the far end of the chamber. I froze, breath shallow, every muscle tense. The silence stretched. Nothing more moved, but I knew I wasn't alone. That's when I heard it again, the whispering. Louder this time, voices overlapping, chanting words I couldn't understand. The walls seemed to close in, the air thickening like it was pressing against my chest. I swallowed hard and reminded myself to stay calm. But inside, the dread was building. Whatever was here had been waiting for someone to find it. And now, it had me. I stood frozen in that shadowed chamber, the whispering voices growing louder, wrapping around me like a cold fog. The words weren't human, they slithered and hissed, impossible to understand but impossible to ignore. My skin prickled as if invisible eyes were boring into me from the dark corners. Suddenly, a low, guttural sound echoed behind me, like something dragging itself across the floor. My breath caught. I turned slowly, the flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam revealed nothing but flickering shadows and the thick layer of dust disturbed by my footsteps. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement again. A figure, something hunched and blurred, darted just beyond the edge of the light. I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself it was just my imagination, the house playing tricks on me. But the weight on my chest grew heavier, and I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. The whispering shifted, no longer overlapping voices, but a single voice, cold and deliberate, whispering my name. "Don't be afraid," it said. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just some forgotten basement or old passage. Something, or someone, was trying to communicate. I backed toward the entrance, but the passage behind me felt miles away, swallowed by darkness. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, and I stumbled as if the ground beneath me had turned uneven. My phone's flashlight flickered once more, then died completely. I was left in near complete darkness, save for the faint glow of the moonlight filtering through a crack high above. Panic surged through me. I fumbled for my lighter and flicked it on. The small flame trembled in the cold air but gave enough light to reveal a horrifying sight. In front of me stood a tall figure, pale and gaunt, its eyes glowing faintly red in the dim light. It had long, twisted fingers curling toward me, and a face so distorted it was almost human but not quite. The figure didn't move, but the air around it rippled with a low hum, vibrating with malevolent energy. I wanted to run, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. The whispering voice returned, this time louder, echoing inside my skull. "Stay with us." My heart hammered in my chest as I mustered every ounce of courage and took a step back. The figure flickered like a broken image and vanished into the shadows. I didn't wait to see if it would come back. I sprinted toward the stairwell, my hands scraping against the rough stone walls as I climbed. The voice followed me, a chilling echo fading but never fully disappearing. When I finally burst back into the small room with the rocking chair and broken mirror, I gasped for air. The oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly, but the fear didn't leave me. That's when I noticed something else. On the mirror, faint handprints appeared, slowly forming even though the room was empty. I reached out, and the glass was cold to the touch, as if the marks had been pressed there moments ago. I didn't stay to question it. I grabbed the notebook and bolted out of the passage, slamming the hidden door shut behind me. But even now, I feel like those eyes are still watching me, and those voices are still whispering my name in the dark. After slamming the hidden door shut, I leaned against it, heart still racing. My mind was spinning, struggling to make sense of everything. What had I just seen? Was it real? Or was I losing my grip on reality? But as I stared at the wall, I noticed faint scratches around the doorframe, tiny marks that looked like claw marks, fresh and raw. I needed answers. I couldn't just forget about it or pretend it hadn't happened. So, the next day, I started digging, literally and figuratively. I scoured old newspapers and historical archives about the house and the neighborhood. What I found was chilling. The house was built over a century ago by a wealthy family who disappeared mysteriously. The previous owners before me mentioned strange noises, odd cold spots, and even missing items, but no one ever talked about a hidden passage. One story caught my attention, a rumor about a secret cult that operated in the area during the early 1900s. They were said to perform dark rituals in hidden chambers, summoning forces beyond human understanding. The descriptions matched the symbols I'd seen on the walls and in the notebook. That night, armed with a camera, the notebook, and a stronger flashlight, I returned to the passage. I needed to explore more, to understand the secrets the house was hiding. The passage felt different in daylight, less menacing but still thick with mystery. As I descended the stairs again, I noticed a faint humming vibration under my feet, like the house itself was alive and breathing. In the chamber, I set up my camera and started photographing the symbols and objects. I examined the jars more closely, some filled with strange powders, others with what looked like dried herbs or unidentifiable substances preserved in liquid. It was like a witch's collection. On the shelves, I found letters, yellowed and brittle. They were addressed to someone named E. The writer spoke of sacrifices, opening the gate, and a watcher that would come once the ritual was complete. I flipped through more pages of the notebook, piecing together the story. The cult was trying to open a doorway to another realm, a place where shadows lived and whispered. They believed the Watcher was a guardian of this gate, a creature they worshipped and feared. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke my concentration, a loud thud from the far corner of the chamber. I swung my flashlight toward the sound but saw nothing. My heart quickened as the whispering started again, more urgent and insistent. I followed the sound, moving cautiously toward a loose stone in the wall. It felt strange under my fingertips, warmer than the surrounding stones. I pushed against it, and the stone shifted slightly, revealing a narrow crawl space behind it. Curiosity pulled me forward despite the fear. I squeezed through the opening, crawling into the tight space. It led to a smaller hidden room, darker and colder than the chamber. In the center lay a circle of salt on the floor, scorched black at the edges as if something had been burned there recently. Around the circle were more symbols, this time drawn in what looked like dried blood. I swallowed hard. Whoever had been here last was trying to contain something, or maybe trying to summon it. Suddenly, a low growl vibrated through the room. I froze, the hair on my arm standing up. The growl turned into a whisper, a warning or a plea, I couldn't tell. I scrambled back through the crawlspace, heart pounding, and sealed the loose stone behind me. Back in the chamber, I grabbed the ancient book from the pedestal again. Flipping through it, I found a passage describing the Watcher, a creature that existed between worlds, feeding on fear and silence, bound by the symbols and rituals to protect the gate. I realized then that the cult hadn't just disappeared. They had been waiting, trapped in the shadows, their rituals incomplete, their Watcher still guarding the passage, waiting for the next visitor. That's when I noticed something horrifying. The symbols on the walls were shifting, rearranging themselves slowly, like the house was alive and reacting to my presence. I needed to get out. But as I turned to leave, a cold hand brushed my shoulder. I spun around, nothing. Just shadows. The house wasn't just a home. It was a prison, a gateway, and a trap. And I had just unlocked its darkest secret. I didn't sleep that night. The images of that cold hand on my shoulder haunted me, and the whispering voices echoed in my mind like a broken record. I knew I had to go back, but this time, not just to explore. I had to confront whatever was waiting down there. As dusk settled, I gathered everything I thought I might need: salt, matches, the notebook, and a small vial of holy water I found tucked away in one of the old drawers. The air felt thick with anticipation as I pushed open the hidden door once more. The passage greeted me like a silent beast, cold and unyielding. I moved quickly but cautiously, the weight of fear pushing me forward. As I reached the chamber, the shadows seemed to pulse with life, swirling and twisting just beyond the edge of my flashlight's reach. I set the vial down on the dusty table and marked the floor with a circle of salt, an old protection ritual I remembered from the letters. The whispering started again, louder, more frantic. The air vibrated, and the temperature dropped sharply. Suddenly, from the shadows emerged the Watcher. It was larger than before, its eyes blazing with a terrifying red light, its limbs elongated and moving with unnatural grace. Its skin was pale but translucent, revealing veins that throbbed like dark rivers beneath the surface. It spoke, its voice deep, echoing inside my skull, promising pain, silence, and eternal watching. I felt my knees weaken, but I stood my ground. I raised the vial of holy water and threw it toward the creature. The liquid hissed on contact, sending out sparks of light and smoke. The Watcher recoiled, letting out a chilling screech that shook the walls. In that moment, I dashed toward the loose stone and shoved it open, retreating into the crawlspace. Behind me, the Watcher's furious growls echoed, but the salt circle held firm, acting as a barrier. I crawled as fast as I could, the narrow passage scraping my skin, the sounds of pursuit fading as I climbed the stairs. Bursting into my living room, I slammed the secret door and shoved a heavy bookshelf in front of it. The house settled, the oppressive energy lifting, but I knew the Watcher was still out there, waiting. I grabbed the notebook once more and found one last page, almost hidden, an unfinished spell, a warning, and a plea to never disturb the gate again. That night, I locked every door and window and kept the lights on. But the whispers never fully left, echoing faintly, reminding me that some doors should stay closed. The days after that night felt like I was trapped in a fog. The house was quieter, but the silence was heavy and unsettling. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching, waiting just beyond the walls. Every creak, every shadow seemed to stretch into something more. I tried to tell myself it was over, that I had closed the door on whatever was down there. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear faint whispers just outside my bedroom door, soft enough to be dismissed, yet chilling enough to freeze my blood. I stopped exploring, stopped looking for answers. The notebook sits locked in a drawer, its pages filled with warnings and secrets I never want to uncover again. I don't know if anyone will believe me if I tell this story, but I had to share it, to warn others that some houses hold more than just memories. I don't go near that hallway anymore. The wallpaper has started to peel where the hidden door is, and I'm too afraid to investigate. I've moved some furniture to block the wall, hoping to forget what's behind it. But deep down, I know it's still there. Waiting. The Watcher, the cult, the gate, they're all part of this house's dark history, and somehow, I became a part of it too. I still hear the whispers sometimes. And every time I do, I remember the warning scrawled in the notebook: some doors are better left unopened. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this: some secrets are buried for a reason. I found a hidden passage in my house, and what I saw inside was more than just forgotten rooms or old relics, it was something alive, something waiting. And that experience changed me forever. Whether you believe in ghosts, curses, or the unknown, the truth is that our homes sometimes hold mysteries we're not meant to uncover. I shared this story to warn anyone who might stumble upon something strange, something hidden. If you ever find a door that shouldn't be there, maybe think twice before opening it. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey into darkness. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more chilling tales. And if you have your own creepy stories or theories about what I found, drop them in the comments. I love reading your experiences. Remember, the next time you hear a whisper or see a shadow where it shouldn't be, it might just be the watcher reminding you to stay away. Stay safe, and don't open doors you can't close.